Hey scholars, it's Miss Webb, and we're going to do a math CGI problem of the day. So remember, when we have a story problem, we need to read the prompt 3 times. We need to read the prompt 3 times. So on our first read, we're thinking about what information do I need to find out. On our first read, we're thinking about what information do I need to find out. On our second read, we're thinking about what information is known and what information is unknown. What information is known and what information is unknown. On our third read, we need to visualize the story and think about the actions or relationships. We need to visualize the story and think about the actions or relationships. So we're going to read our story problem of today. You guessed it, 3 times. And on our first read, we're thinking about what do I need to figure out. So our prompt for today is a 2-part prompt. And our first section reads, for 2 days in a row, Jennie ran from 4:45 to 5:17 p.m. How many minutes did she run altogether? So I need to figure out how many minutes did Jennie run altogether. So I'm going to mark up my prompt and underline important information. I'm going to underline how many minutes did she run all together? That's our first read. So our second read, we need to think about what information is known and what information is unknown. Let's read again. For 2 days in a row, Jennie ran from 4:45 to 5:17 p.m. So I know from the prompt our start time, which is 4:45 p.m., and our end time, which is 5:17 p.m. So I'm going to set up my paper. So I have my knowns and my unknowns. And I'm going to fill in the information that I know first. So our knowns, we know that her start time was from 4:45. So I'm going to write 4:45 p.m. And I also know that her end time was at 5:17 p.m. So I'm going to write this information as well. 5:17 p.m. I also need to think about my unknowns. What information is not given in the problem that I need to solve for? So for my unknowns, I have how many minutes that she ran day 1. We don't know this information. We haven't solved it yet. And we also don't know how many minutes she ran altogether, which was on day 1 and day 2. So now I need to read it again for my third time, and I need to visualize and think about the relationship between our knowns and unknowns. For 2 days in a row, Jennie ran from 4:45 to 5:17 p.m. There's also another piece of important information. I know that she ran, because I visualized, 2 days in a row. So I'm going to mark that up. And I also need to think about the relationship between our knowns and unknowns. She ran from 4:45 p.m. to 5:17 p.m. And I need to think about how many minutes did she run altogether. So I know that I need to do something with these knowns, and I noticed that she ran 2 days in a row, and that we need to figure out how many minutes she ran altogether. So let's take a look down here at my unknowns. I noticed that the first thing I need to solve for is how many minutes she ran for day 1, because this is one of my unknowns. So the first thing I need to do is mark up my information that I do know to solve information that I don't. So I know that to solve the minutes she ran for day 1, her start time was 4:45 p.m. and her end time was 5:17 p.m. I don't know how long or the duration, so that's what I need to solve for. So I can solve using two different strategies. The first strategy I would like to use is a number line. This number line strategy can help me visualize how many minutes she ran in total on day 1. We know that on a number line, the numbers increase from smallest to largest. So here I have to put my start time at the beginning of the number line, which is 4:45. And I also know that she ended at 5:17. Because I noticed that 4:45 is 15 minutes from the top of the hour, which is 5 o'clock, I'm going to draw my number line in increments of 15 minutes. So I'm going to go from 4:45, make my jump to 5 o'clock p.m., jump another 15 minutes to 5:15 p.m., but she ended at 5:17. So I need to make 2 smaller jumps to get to 5:17. So my first jump was 15 minutes. My second jump was 15 minutes. My third jump was 1 minute. And my fourth jump was 1 minute. So now to figure out the duration, I need to combine all the minutes together. So I'm going to add 15 plus 15. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 1, 2, 3. Which is 30 minutes. And then I also need to add my 2 minutes. So 30 plus 2 equals 32. So I have a visual representation of how long the time was from 4:45 to 5:17. And I found out that my duration was 32 minutes for the minutes that she ran on day 1. So I'm going to fill in my known. And now I have a new known. How many minutes she ran on day 1. So I'm also going to fill in this information here on my chart because it's a new known. The minutes that she ran on day 1 was 32 minutes. However, I'm still left with one unknown. The unknown that I have now is how many minutes did she run for both days? I noticed in my prompt it says that for 2 days in a row, she ran from 4:45 to 5:17. So that tells me, if I visualize, that she's running the same amount of minutes on both days. So now I can fill in our information for how many minutes she ran on day 1 using our new known. So on day 1, I know that she ran 32 minutes. And I know from our story problem that she ran the same amount on day 2. So day 2 must also be, you guessed it, 32 minutes. So I need to figure out how many minutes she ran altogether for both days. I know that the action, because I need to think about both of these numbers and how many she ran in total, I can use the operation of addition to solve. So I can add 32 plus 32. So 2 plus 2 equals 4, and 3 plus 3 equals 6. Or I can even use multiplication to solve. I know that she ran 34 total minutes on day 1 in groups of 2 days. So, 32 minutes in groups of 2 days. So I can multiply 32 times 2. So I can decompose 32 into 30 and 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2. 30 times 2 equals 60. 2 times 2 equals 4. And 60 plus 4 equals 64. So I know that Jennie ran 64 minutes all together. I can go back up here, fill in my unknown, because this is our new known, how many minutes she ran together. So scholars, great job with part 1. Give yourselves a round of applause. Great job. So now we're going to move on to part B of our math problem. So we have part B. We need to read the prompt 3 times. The first time we need to think about what do I need to figure out. The second time we need to figure out what info do I know, or what are my knowns and what are my unknowns. And the third time we read, we need to visualize the story and think about the action or relationship. Let's take a look at our part B. The next week, Jennie runs 41 minutes on Monday, 37 minutes on Tuesday. How many minutes did she run in all for both weeks? So first thing I need to do is think about what I need to solve. I need to solve in this equation, how many minutes did she run in all for both weeks? How many minutes in all for both weeks? My second read, the next week Jennie runs 41 minutes on Monday and 37 minutes on Tuesday. How many minutes did she run in all for both weeks? I need to think about my knowns and my unknowns. So the knowns that we have is that she ran a total amount in week 1. That's what we just solved for. So in week 1, she ran a total of 64 minutes. This was our known from part A. We also know how many minutes she ran on Monday. Jennie ran 41 minutes on Monday. So we're going to fill in that known, 41 minutes. And she ran 37 minutes on Tuesday. So that's another known, 37 minutes. We also need to think about our unknowns. What information don't we know yet? We don't know how many minutes she ran together in week 2, and we don't know how many minutes she ran for both weeks. So these are our unknowns that we need to solve for. The first unknown is how many minutes she ran in week 2. I know week 2 she ran on Monday 41 minutes. And on Tuesday she ran 37 minutes. So now I can reread the prompt, visualize, and then solve for how many minutes she ran in week 2. The next week, Jennie runs 41 minutes on Monday and 37 minutes on Tuesday. How many minutes did she run in all for both weeks? In all tells me that I need to add the minutes on Monday and Tuesday to give me the total amount for her weeks. So her total amount is 7 plus 1, which is 8. 4 plus 3, which is 7. So she ran 78 minutes on week 2. We can fill in that as our new known. And we need to figure out how many minutes did she run for both weeks. We also need to figure out how many minutes she ran for both weeks. So we know that Jennie ran 64 minutes week 1. And we just saw for how many minutes she ran on week 2, which was 78. We need to combine these minutes to get our total for both weeks. 4 plus 8 equals 12. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 plus 7 equals 14. Jennie ran 142 minutes in all for both weeks. Nice job, scholars. Thank you again for joining me for today's CGI problem. I look forward to your responses, and let's see if anyone had a different strategy than Miss Webb. Bye. See you later.